There's this track from the Lorax. It's called Biggering, and it follows the Once-Ler's descent into corporate devilhood. If you're confused because you don't remember this song, it's because it never made it into the actual film. This was the very early version of a song called How Bad Can I Be? I'm just doing. Now, I have some problems with the Lorax. At the end of the day, I do find this film fun, and there are things to like about How Bad Can I Be? But ultimately, I believe the decision to replace Biggering with How Bad Can I Be deals an enormous blow to the film's anti-corporate message. It kills me that we could have gotten a really powerful, dark moment about corporate greed from the Lorax, and we didn't. Because that dark moment wasn't marketable or comfortable. It was too real. Allow me to get up on my soapbox. Okay, like I said, there's stuff to like about this film.
It all started a long time ago.
Can we start not so long ago, maybe?
Do you want a tree?
Yes.
Then it all started a long...
And stuff to hate.
You wouldn't hit a woman.
That's a woman?
Really did it. New joke. Made a new joke. Woo!
If you've gone through my other videos, you probably know that I'm most fascinated by stories that tackle difficult real-world topics, for better or for worse, or had the potential to be good, but got fucked up somewhere along the production pipeline.
I just think they're neat.
The Lorax strikes me as a film with a skeleton of a good story hidden somewhere underneath all the fluff and teenage crushes.
Remember, rip it, roll it, and punch it!
It's like he's trying to speak to me, I know it!
Here's the plot of the Lorax for those of you who may need a refresher. We open on a world that's been so ravaged by pollution that all the trees are dead. Maybe. Ted lives in a synthetic oasis where all the plants are plastic and the townspeople have to buy fresh air from a corporate asshole named O'Hare. Ted's crush wants a tree because she thinks they're pretty.
And they smelled like butterfly milk.
Wow. What does that even mean?
I know, right?
Ted goes to see a guy called the Once-Ler because he's told he'll know how to get a tree. The Once-Ler tells Ted how he chopped down all the trees. Long story short, the Once-Ler arrived at this pretty valley and, despite the protests of a small orange forest spirit named Danny DeVito, used the tufts of the truffula trees to create a product called a Thneed. The Once-Ler biggered his Thneed factory and became richer and richer up until the moment he'd used up all the natural resources and chased away all the animals and he had to close up shop. In the present day, he gives Ted the last truffula tree seed. Ted goes to the town square, forces the townspeople to face the devastated real world, and everyone plants the tree together. O'Hare gets blasted off again, and the film ends on this message. So, yeah, there's some weak material here. For one thing, why do Ted and the townspeople decide to care about trees? We're given no reason to believe any of the townspeople can't afford to buy air. We're given no reason to believe the chemicals they consume are dangerous. We're given no reason to believe O'Hare will run out of fresh air like the Once-Ler ran out of trees. There's no time limit here, no danger. So why do we want to save the trees? For the aesthetic? You can't tell kids to save the trees and then not give them a concrete reason why they need to do that. Why not let the animals and trees die? It literally makes no difference to these rich town people.
Let it go.
Why?
There are a couple songs that had the potential to change the scope of this film, like the demo version of the opener. Cinco Paul confirmed that very early on, Ted was supposed to learn a lesson about materialism.
All I ever wanted is a who's it. Except for the time that I wanted a scooter, a cell phone, a trombone, a laptop computer, a sports car, an SUV robot that looks like me.
In the final film, Ted goes to find a tree because someone else wants one. Why not trim the fat and scrap the crush? Why not let Ted go after a tree because he wants one?
All I ever wanted in my life is the stuff that I don't have.
And then Ted could learn a lesson about how people like the Once-Ler use products like Thneeds to excuse and distract from the destruction of the planet. How Ted has been blinded by his desire to own the latest Who's It or What's It. There's also a cut gospel version of the final song, 2 cut songs about how the Once-Ler wants to use the trees and animals to make his Thneeds, a cut song about how nobody wants the Once-Ler's Thneeds, and of course, a song about the Once-Ler's road trip.
Look, it's some circling birds. I bet you that they're going to eat our corpses.
So, the conservationist message is at the core of this film, and to make that message work, I truly believe the Lorax needed to at least nod to the ways environment degradation harms people as well as plants and animals. And while there are demo songs that tease at a darker tone or an arc that never came to fruition, none of them take that extra step. So maybe there was a plan to address the human aspect at some point, but I wouldn't know. The Once-Ler, though. I know for a fact the Once-Ler could have lived up to his potential and debunked the kinds of excuses corporate leaders use to defend their egregious business practices.
We were so close! So close. We tripped at the finish line. Why? Because our little
Illumination
has to go all
plausible deniability.
There's no one song that could have saved the Lorax as a film. But there is a song that could have saved the Once-Ler. And yet, they chose to go with... Now, I like How Bad Can I Be on a meta level. The song reminds me a lot of Bo Burnham's Repeat Stuff.
Need to know the words after just one listen, so repeat stuff, repeat stuff, repeat stuff.
If a song from a film never leaves a person's head, neither does the actual film, which makes them more likely to stream the soundtrack, rewatch the film, encourage others to watch the film, buy products associated with the film, or have a nervous breakdown. How Bad Can I Be was designed to stick to your brain like glue. This has a lot to do with why it became such a big meme. Many people who have never even heard of this film will have absorbed this song through sheer cultural osmosis. So with that context, How Bad Can I Be starts to feel a lot like a commercial. Both the Once-Ler and the film use a catchy but vapid tune to try and sell you on a brand. But as the song goes on, the curtain falls away to reveal the gross business practices that underlie the Once-Ler's excuses. On a story level, this song shows kids the kinds of lies corporations use to disguise their destructive business practices. It also makes for some yummy meta, where Illumination Entertainment plays themselves.
And the PR people are lying!
And who received the only certified truffle-a-tree seal of approval?
How bad can I be?
A portion of proceeds goes to charity.
A couple problems here, though. 1. The demolition of the Once-Ler's valley goes by way too fast. One does not simply destroy the planet overnight. For that reason, the 1972 animated short devoted over 80% of its runtime to the rise of the Once-Ler's corporate empire. The Lorax 2012, meanwhile, devotes about 4%. Let's say the creators weren't allowed to go beyond that time frame. Fine. That's all the more reason to make every second of that 4% count. But 2. The Lorax 2012 spends that 4% doubling down on the Once-Ler's naivete. Yes, you see the Once-Ler go from a goofball to a god of destruction, but you'll notice as the song goes on that the Once-Ler never looks at the devastation he's wrought. He's only aware of the world around him enough to mess around with the Lorax and the Barbaloots. He doesn't so much as glance at the toughs as they're processed, or the smoke that clogs the sky, or the schlop that clogs the rivers, or any of the sick, homeless animals. Even at the very end of the song, when the Once-Ler has supposedly reached the pinnacle of evil, he looks to the audience, not down at the destroyed forest at his feet. Now you might think that sounds fine. More than fine, even. Isn't that what corporations do? Never look up from their money as they grind the world under their heels? Isn't that good commentary? And yeah, it's good. It tells kids that corporate bosses are careless and greedy. But this song also propagates some of the excuses corporations have hid behind for decades. And that's kind of a big claim to make about the Lorax. I'm gonna have to go back a bit to explain that one. Okay, so you'll see a lot of big corporate villains crop up on TV, and for the longest time I didn't understand why, since most films and series are produced by corporations. And that contradiction extended to the Lorax. Why was Illumination so careful to make the Once-Ler seem like a naive guy who got carried away, but were perfectly happy to portray O'Hare as an irredeemable man-baby? Why wasn't Comcast, who owns NBC Universal, who owns Illumination Entertainment, who made the Lorax, offended by a businessman as deliberately evil as O'Hare? And I'm sure at some level corporations pick and choose what to get upset about, and maybe the Lorax didn't seem like a threat. Fair. But I also think corporate leaders don't see themselves as O'Hare, the cardboard villain. They see themselves as the Once-Ler, or they want you to see them as the Once-Ler. The underdog who starts out poor, who forges off on his own to start a company with only the shirt on his back and maybe a guitar slung over his shoulder. The Once-Ler doesn't decide to destroy the planet for profit. Oh no, his family bullies and manipulates him until he caves and says, yeah, fine, we'll cut down a few trees. He's greedy, but he doesn't realize the damage he's done until the very last tree falls. He didn't mean to destroy the valley. He only wanted validation from his family. He only wanted to grow his business and to be somebody. In the book, in the 1972 short, you never see the Once-Ler's face. He's more a personification of industry than a character. In this film, he's given a face and a personality and a hipster outfit to appeal to the preteens. He's a relatable everyman by design.
Our character designers, they did a lot of work and put a person behind that could connect with a movie-going audience.
Because we wanted to make sure that as people are watching it, they're identifying with the Once-Ler.
Producer Chris Meledandri explained, the minute you make the Once-Ler a monster, you allow the audience to interpret that the problem is caused by somebody who is different from me, and it ceases to be a story that is about all of us. If you tell a kid, look out for guys like O'Hare, they won't find him. He's not a threat to corporations because he's too much of a cardboard cutout to survive outside of fiction. There's a reason even someone as proudly despicable as Donald Trump tries to come off as the underdog everyman, however poorly.
I mean, my whole life really has been a no, and I fought through it. I have been, and I talk about it. It's not been easy for me.
The more people relate to you, the more they trust you. I would never do this terrible thing, so how could they? Meledandri was aware of the way characters like O'Hare and the book Once-Ler propagate the message that only monsters are capable of deliberate evil. The film could have used the Once-Ler to show that, yes, kids, humans like you do bad shit. Just because you relate to a corporate leader doesn't mean you can trust them to do what's right. That's what would have made a truly bad Once-Ler a threat to corporations. That's a really cool, valuable lesson. And you can see that vision almost come to fruition. The Once-Ler is human, and he does destroy the environment. But the film never takes the final step. It refuses to give the Once-Ler agency. If this were a case of willful blindness, where the Once-Ler was even remotely aware of the atrocities around him but chose to look away, would he be so shocked when the last tree fell? He looks devastated here. I can only assume the Once-Ler was truly unaware of the scale of the atrocities he committed until the very last moment. How Bad Can I Be paints corporations as irresponsible, yes, but also totally ignorant to the scope of their actions, a false conception corporations can and do use to their advantage. When people found out tobacco caused cancer, that lead paint was poisonous, those companies swore up and down that they hadn't known. When the Deepwater Horizon rig burst, BP knew very well that their safety system was a farce. That wasn't by accident, but by design. W.R. Grace & Company knew their mine was chock full of asbestos and that their workers would die, but of course they pretended otherwise, because that's what companies do. They're told about some health hazard early on, and they weigh the lives of their workers and customers and neighbors against money, and make the conscious choice to put the money first. And then, when some disaster strikes, they say, "Oh, what a tragedy! How unfortunate that we never knew!" If only the Once-Ler would take responsibility for his actions. If only this film could have shown that corporate leaders are both human and aware of the consequences of their actions as they make them. If only there was a song that could convey that kind of message within 5 minutes.
You missed! How could you miss?
In How Bad Can I Be, the Once-Ler spends the whole runtime on the question, am I a good person? He prances around, blind to the damage he incurs. There's no question in biggering. There's no denial. No oblivious naivete. This Once-Ler doesn't seek your approval or ask you whether he's righteous. He tells you why he needs more and how he's going to get more because that's what companies do and that's what he deserves. Unlike the How Bad Can I Be Once-Ler, he's all too aware of the scope of the damage he's caused and he simply does not care.
Who cares if a few trees are dying?
We're never given any reason to believe the Once-Ler from How Bad Can I Be so much as suspects he's done any damage to the world besides kill a few trees. The Once-Ler from Biggering, on the other hand, doesn't care that some things are dying. Some, not few, and things, not only trees. There's a reason that line was changed from some things to a few trees, and that's because one of those lines grants the Once-Ler plausible deniability and the other doesn't. Illumination could not make the Once-Ler sing about some things dying with this amount of zeal and then turn around to pretend he was oblivious. Hell, forget some or few. They couldn't have the Once-Ler sing a song like Biggering, period. It's far too deliberate. I can mumble How Bad Can I Be to myself while I do the dishes. Biggering grabs me kinda like the Hunchback of Notre Dame's Hellfire, where I struggle not to belt the words out. It's a song I feel like I have to sing with intent.
The animal that wins gotta scratch and fight and claw and bite and punch. And the animal that doesn't, well, the animal that doesn't winds up someone else's la 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 lunch. The animal that wins has got to claw and bite and kick and punch. The animal that doesn't winds up someone else's lunch.
Who cares if a few trees are dying? This is also gratifying!
Who cares if some things are dying? I don't wanna hear you cry.
So, Biggering does everything for me that How Bad Can I Be couldn't. We still see the Once-Ler as a naive entrepreneur. We relate to him, so that when he sinks to an evil level, we're aware that he does so as a fellow human, not a monster or a cardboard cutout. And with Biggering, he's clearly aware of the consequences of his actions and proceeds to bigger his business anyway. This desolate valley can no longer be mistaken for an accident. The corporate message becomes, a corporate leader can be relatable, likable even, and still make the conscious choice to exploit and even kill to further their business. I asked Cinco Paul, one of the two screenwriters for the Lorax, why Biggering was cut. He confirmed my suspicions. The studio thought the song was, quote, too relentlessly dark. I asked a couple more questions, but Paul never got back to me.
I'm sorry, Cinco. I didn't mean to scare you away with my obsession with the Lorax. I just wanted to know the truth.
But yeah, of course the song got cut. It was too honest about corporate greed, and on a story level, for the song to make any kind of sense, we need some kind of lead up. A couple scenes that show the Once-Ler's descent before he hits Biggering levels of corporate cynicism. You could argue that Illumination also didn't want to scare kids with such a dark song, but corporations that destroy the planet are scary and dark. That's our reality. If you don't want to confront that reality, then why make a film about corporations and conservationism at all? Why tackle Dr. Seuss's darkest book, which ends like, unless you do something, kid, the world's gonna stay shit forever. The end. When you try to skirt around that darkness, you skirt around the soul of the story, and your film becomes spineless and fake. I do want to point out that there were no right answers for the writers here. How are you supposed to write a film that both condemns corporations and doesn't upset the corporation that runs your studio? How are you supposed to write a heartfelt critique of consumerism when your film has over 70 corporate tie-ins? How are you supposed to treat topics like corporate greed and conservationism with due seriousness when you're not allowed to get dark for more than a few minutes of screen time? All I know for sure is that biggering was scrapped, which makes me sad, because kids could have gotten a good message about the true nature of corporations, and I do believe that would have saved the Once-Ler. Chris Meledandri says the production team chose to make the Once-Ler as relatable as possible so as to step away from myth. That was supposed to be the Once-Ler's purpose as a character, but because the film refuses to make him aware of the havoc he wreaks, he only serves to propagate one of corporations' most powerful disguises, the myth of plausible deniability. Biggering would have allowed the Once-Ler to tell the full corporate story, and through that truth, reach his full potential. It also would have given us a fucking bop! Oh, hello, squad! Thank you guys so much for watching this video about the Lorax, and an even bigger thank you to all of my wonderful patrons. You guys are the best. Even bigger thank you to my top patrons, Lunas Aram and Sol Hastalitha. You guys keep this channel alive. Thank you so much. You want to see your name on this list? Good news! You can do that when you go over to my Patreon and you pledge. You can also get previews of my videos and see videos early. So check that out, maybe. But yeah, I hope to see you guys sometime with a new video. I'm sending love. I hope you guys are all safe and healthy. See ya, sinners!
Some other little critter's gonna come and make furniture out of our bones and sit on it and have lovely dinners.